taking a look at what's happened with rents across the country over the last 12 months and looking at figures released up until the end of November, released in December 2020. The UK has finished the year with a fairly strong year of rental growth. Now, we might remember looking at the figures in October and November, we had a really strong level of rental increase immediately off the back of the first national lockdown in England, Wales and Scotland. Rents accelerated very quickly, mirroring what was happening with house prices as well, as a number of people who had plans to move, had plans to change their accommodation over that lockdown period, came out of lockdown and very quickly made their decisions about where to move to. And that influx of demand in the marketplace certainly drove up rents very quickly. Then we saw figures to the end of October with growth grind to a halt, and now we're seeing slightly more normal figures released in December, showing what's happened up until the end of November. So if we look at those figures, month on month growth, Wales up 2.4%, the Southwest up 2%, the Southeast 1.1%, the East Midlands up 1.6%, East of England 0.7%, and then the smaller gains in the Northwest 0.3%, Yorkshire and Humberside 0.3% as well. The West Midlands flat, Scotland down slightly, but we've got to remember this comes off very sustained growth month on month throughout the rest of the year, as is the case with Northern Ireland. The Northeast also reporting a down month as well, but having come off the back of 10 months of growth over the course of the year. The only real area which seems to be going backwards in terms of rental growth over the last 12 months is the Greater London area. London and the Southeast disproportionately hit. And this comes down to one of the things that's happened as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, but also most importantly the lockdown measures that have come in the UK. So if we look at most of the country and most of the regions outside London and the Southeast, where rents traditionally are significantly more affordable, those supply and demand factors which remain in place, the shortage of good quality accommodation and the number of tenants chasing that accommodation has underpinned rental values. However, in London, you've got a big affordability issue within London and the Southeast, and that's down to how the government support, how the government assistance has played out. There's caps on the amount of government support and government assistance available through the furlough scheme, through the various loan schemes that are available and support for people who are self-employed. And in London and the Southeast, where rents are significantly higher than the rest of the country, affordability is an issue. There is a growing problem with rent arrears across the UK, but most of that is skewed very much towards London and the Southeast. If you talk to the majority of landlords who have their portfolios outside that area, there's a very low incidence in terms of rent arrears, and the majority of them are able to agree suitable payment plans with their tenants. However, in London, there's a growing affordability issue because of the price of renting accommodation within the capital, and that's going to store up some big issues down the track, especially when at the moment we're looking at 6-month notice periods for rent arrears if a tenant does get into trouble before a landlord can consider court proceedings. At this stage, we're still seeing a stay on any court proceedings and any evictions until the start of the new year in response to the crisis. And most industry experts operating here are saying, in reality, if a tenant is in arrears, then it's going to take about a year to evict them legally. So the advice at the moment is, if you have any tenants who are struggling financially due to COVID-19, the best thing to do is try and keep them within your property, try and negotiate a suitable payment plan so that even if they can't meet the full rent right now, there's a path for them to recover and clear some of those arrears once we come out the other side of this pandemic. But also, if you're outside London and the Southeast, don't believe the doom and gloom headlines. The rental market is in fairly good shape. Keep a good eye on what's going on with other properties in the market, what your competition is doing. Take your gains where you can, but also balance that, as all good landlords should do, with if you've got a good tenant in a property, don't be too eager to raise the rent too quickly, because you don't want to give them excuse to look around in the marketplace, that increased cost in terms of voids and marketing times for yourself as a landlord, but also that kind of moral obligation at the moment when we are at a difficult point in time to not force people to be chopping and changing accommodation where they don't need to. What will 2021 bring for rents? Well, at the moment, we're still in a situation where demand is outstripping supply, especially for good quality accommodation. We're still seeing amateur landlords exit the market, and also some older, exhausted and retiring landlords exit due to the changes in tax treatment that we've seen. There's a little mini bubble right now in house prices because of what's gone on with the stamp duty holiday and those people who had cash available, who've been frustrated by the various lockdowns and not being able to get their business done as quickly as possible. But that looks like that will settle down in 2021 as well, while rental prices tipped to continue to grow at a fairly significant rate because there's no changes in that supply and demand imbalance in the property market. So overall, still a good time to be a landlord, but do remember that your tenants are your customers, and it's about providing good customer service and good quality accommodation at the right price point to keep your tenants happy and keep them in your properties long term.